8:30, so I'm like an hour late. May 3rd, Thursday. Going to be a hot day over here in Fairfax, up to 81, maybe 85 degrees. That's pretty ridiculous. That is in Fahrenheit for all you European slash Celsius users. Remember, Actual Hero came into the chat room the other day. He's like, it's 80 degrees Fahrenheit? I thought humans could only survive up to like 40, or not 80, not Fahrenheit. It's like, it's 85 degrees? I thought humans could only survive up to like 40 degrees. And of course, he was talking about Celsius, which that would be a quite a bit higher temperature in Celsius than it is in Fahrenheit. So we are going live. Apparently, ranked queues are not live today by virtue of the bugs that have been going around, and mainly the bug is summoner spells can be manipulated so they have no cooldown. Essentially, it's a mastery problem where people can put too many points into masteries. So they are working on a hotfix, as you see right there. Rank queues have been disabled. Oopsies. And they are working on a hotfix. Apparently, if you click it, and there's a little bit of an issue there, and it pops up a new screen. All that being said, I will get into some solo queue streaming hopefully later today. Hopefully they solve all those issues. There was also a Victor bug where he could double cast his ultimate, and we saw that in our community games last night. It just absolutely exploded in Ari. Only happened once, and Victor's team did eventually lose, so at least it didn't, affect the outcome of the game. But that was an interesting bug as well. So they have quite a few things to fix on their side. It was a big patch. They did release spectator mode, a lot of new things coming out, so not too surprised there are these hiccups, but I am kind of surprised that someone figured out a way to hack the system. Anyways, all that is kind of just like, oh, this is what's going on this morning. Wasn't really the planned topic of my morning. The planned topic of my morning was lone wolfing. And what do I mean by lone wolfing? I mean, even in high-level play, even in competitive play sometimes, you see one person who really wants to do things on their own. Whether this is, just farming a lot on their own, or, not taking objectives, farming instead of taking objectives. I just kind of want to call this to people's attention and tell them, this is a bad idea. This is a bad idea. I don't want to call out people. I love Potato. He is generally a top lane player. I played with him in a couple of ranked games. Really good player. But I remember one time there was 5 of us and we were all at Dragon. And it seemed like a relatively safe dragon, but I was like, we need all 5 for dragon. I actually typed that out in all chat, or not in all chat, obviously, in our team chat. I was like, we need all 5 for dragon. He ran back up the top lane, and they came in and engaged on us 4-on-4, and they were just like, I guess it was 4-on-4, and they had a better team at that point, and they won the fight. Whereas if he'd been down there, we did drag him because we had a slight advantage, and that advantage was he was down there, and they were missing a person. I believe we killed a person. So really we lost a rather major team fight. We lost the dragon, and everything went bad. And last night I was watching, or actually yesterday I was in another game where we were pushing down middle, but our TF decided to push down bottom lane. Now, that's understandable. TF kind of has this mentality of, oh, let's split push. But you have to realize when you're a Nocturne or you're a TF and you don't have your ultimates, you don't have this split pushing capability. Also, while pushing separate lanes is sometimes beneficial, it is not always beneficial. And what I mean by that is pushing separate lanes can be good, but, for instance, if you ace the other team, doing everything as a team is generally the most efficient way to succeed, and just the most efficient way to take down objectives. For instance, if you ace the team and you want to go to Baron, you should have everyone go to Baron. Why? Because you all do it that much quicker, and you can have other people then split off and do their own thing. But you want to make sure you secure that important objective. In a case where you win a team fight and you're trying to push down middle to get an inhibitor, everyone should push down middle to get that inhibitor, and then you can go to the other turrets. Like, I understand the appeal of, one person pushing bottom lane while everyone else is getting the inhibitor if you're sure you're going to get the inhibitor, but it actually doesn't change the fact that you would do it faster in almost all instances if you had everyone focusing on that turret, everyone focusing on that inhibitor, and then everyone moving to the other turrets. Because if you don't do that, it can just simply backfire in rather unexpected ways. For instance, what happened is we took the inhibitor, but we got a little bit lower than we should have. TF actually went bottom, didn't even pick up the turret, but then Baron was up immediately thereafter, and we went to Baron, but TF, who was bottom, apparently went back. Now, if he was with us, he would have went straight to Baron, but anyways, the end result was a game that we, had won every single team fight in. We ended up losing because it was 40 minutes in, we were doing Baron, they actually stole Baron, they won the ensuing team fight because, TF got there a little bit late, and then they were able to push down middle because that's what you do, 40 minutes in. If if the game's not completely out of whack, 40 minutes in, if there's an ace, you just push down middle. So certainly be careful about lone wolfing. And it's hard to say that because especially if you don't like your team, you want to be, doing your own thing. You want to be like, oh, I'm going to carry this game alone. But it's generally not effective. Generally not effective. It's generally much more efficient, effective, and another E word, and everybody will like you more if you just group up with everyone, attack the same turret. If you're taking the base turrets, that's kind of one of my pet peeves as well. Is like you'll have half the team attacking one base turret and half the team attacking the other base turret. Everyone focus on the one because then it's dead, and then everyone focus on the other one and it'll die, and there'll be less sources of damage coming at you or at your minions. So that rarely, makes the difference. But, I was watching, games last night in high-level solo queue where, like, there just wasn't a singularity of mind. For instance, there was a game where both sides could have finished it. I'm almost positive both sides could have finished it like 2 or 3 times if they just like pushed down middle and gone for the base. But instead of having everyone push down middle, they had like one person back up or something like that. And so, or on the other hand, like instead of just straight pushing the base turret, they had people attack the enemy. So there's an instance where there was like a 4-on-2. There were no turrets left, just the base. But those 4 people tried to kill the 2 people, didn't quite kill them, and then other people respawn. Where 4 people can take out the base really, really fast if you just auto attack and you don't let anything else interrupt you. And then finally, at the end of the game, 2 people who were still alive, did ignore another 2 people and just like rush down the base. So just do things in concert and you will have greater success. um, yeah. So that's kind of my lesson of the day. Lone wolfing, generally not a great idea. Working with your team, even if you don't like your team, leads to greater success. So good luck with that. I hope that's a little bit informative. I know it's hard, like I know you probably already know that it's more useful to be with your team, but it's hard to get over that mental kind of block where you're like, oh, I want to do my own thing. I think pushing this turret is a better idea than pushing, I think pushing top is better than pushing bottom. Well, that's, you may be right. In a lot of cases, you'll be right in going against the majority, but it's still better if you go with the majority just because, their wrong won't be as bad as having the team split up. Another thing I often see is like a couple people will be like, hey, let's go to Baron. And a couple other people will be like, oh, that's not a good idea. Well, it's tricky. It is very tricky there because if you don't help out, maybe they'll back out of Baron, and then you can all go your own way. But if you don't help and then decide to help later on, so you're like, oh, I don't really like the idea, but then go towards Baron like 5 seconds later, you have to realize, like, after 25 minutes in the game, if you have a decent Baron team, you'll do it in 15 seconds. If you have a good Baroning team, you'll do it in 10 seconds. So you can do Baron very fast, but you have to have everyone of the same mind, everyone to actually attack it, particularly the important people to attack it, the AD carry, an AP carry if it's consistent damage, like Cassiopeia or Karthus, top lane Bruiser, anyone with a Wriggle. If you're one of those people that do a lot of damage, basically anyone except a support or a kind of burst low damage AP carry, because some AP carries really just don't do any damage to Baron. If you're LeBlanc, if you're Annie, if you're Singed, for instance, you do relatively little damage to Baron and to Dragon. So in those cases, it makes more sense that you can actually just kind of zone people out instead of actually attacking the Baron. But regardless, the point is, even if something's a bad idea, it's a worse idea normally if you don't get involved in it immediately. So keep that in mind. Help your teammates out, so on, so forth. We are going to close up the Wake Up Rundown once again. May 3rd, as it says right there. And I've got to rearrange some videos, and then I'll get into some normal game streams, I suppose, since ranked queue is disabled.